Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for February 6th through 12th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 6 shows, I watched 1 movie, and I listened to 2 books. You've never seen me in this location before, and that's because we're at a bed and breakfast. We came to a historical bed and breakfast in our own area just to get away for the weekend. It is very lovely. We're about to get breakfast after I finish filming this, so I'm going to try to make it quick. The first book I finished this week was for the Rent Readathon, and that's Here the Whole Time. This is translated from Portuguese. It is a book that is set in Brazil, and our main character is Felipe. He is a teenager, he goes to school, he gets bullied a lot there because he is fat. And just as winter break is rolling around, he's excited to lay in his room and watch his movies and basically do nothing. He finds out that his crush, who also lives in the same building as him but goes to a different school, is going to be staying with him and his mother for the next 15 days. He hasn't really talked to his crush all that much since he was about 13 and they stopped hanging out at the pool at their facility because he didn't want to go in the pool with a t-shirt on, and he was definitely not going in the pool with a t-shirt off. This forced proximity means these two boys have to spend a lot of time together, they get to know each other very well, and things develop from there. I thought this was really cute. Not only did Felipe get to stand up for somebody else who was fat and younger than him and have that person see him as a superhero, he also got to meet somebody who is older, more experienced, and gave zero shits about being fat, which was just lovely. I very much enjoyed my time with these boys. There was a section, however, where he talked about his favorite musicals because him and his mother do Musical Wednesdays where they watch a musical, and I was pretty okay with his top 5 list until he got to the 5th one, which was Footloose. He says specifically the 1984 version, not the remake. Now, I haven't seen the remake, I've heard that it's not great, whatever, I don't care. However, the 1984 version of Footloose is not a musical. And that bummed me out too when I found out, because I listened to the soundtrack growing up and then I went to watch the movie and I was like, why is Kevin Bacon not singing? What is this garbage? So there you have it. That was my one little nitpicky thing where I was like, nope, you got something wrong. But otherwise this was lovely. The next book I read was also for the Rent Readathon, and that was Hollow Kingdom. This is the book that I read for Something Weird, because the protagonist of this book is a crow named Shit Turd, and he is trying to solve the end of the world. Essentially, we meet him and he's with his human, Big Jim, and the dog that lives with them, Dennis, and then all of a sudden one day, Big Jim starts acting very strange. And since Big Jim is acting strange, Dennis is getting depressed, so Shit Turd, ST for short, decides that he's going to try to solve this problem by going out and getting whatever medicine he can. And crows are very clever, so he is able to get into a Walgreens, but then he finds a bunch of humans that are acting the same weird way as his human, and it goes on from there. One of the things I really liked is you got random chapters from different animals, and some of those animals had amazing names, such as Winnie the Poodle and Spark Pug, who had a chew toy in the shape of a lobster named John Claude. We also had Genghis Cat, and then there were several other people that didn't have super clever names or whatever. In addition, ST is hilarious. He's grown up with this human, so he's domesticated, so he has a lot of opinions based on the opinions of his human and his own opinions. His insult game is at the level of a drag queen. That's how good his insults are. And dare I say his insults are even better because the author obviously had time to write them down instead of thinking of them on the fly. ST and his murder end up going on various adventures around Seattle to try to figure out what's going on and how to fix it, and this was delightful. It's also apparently the first in a duology, which means I'm going to have to read the second one because I want to know how the situation at the end of this book turns out. You could just read this as a standalone and just have hope for the world, but I would also like to know where the author went from there. On to the shows I watched. We watched episodes 6 and 7 of Ozark, the 4th season, because they're doing this weird half-season thing, so we only have a half season right now. And yeah, I can't obviously tell you too much about it, but there were some things that went down, and I do not know how they're gonna end out this show in the second half of this season. I also don't know when that second half of the season is coming up, which is vaguely annoying, but I can understand that there was a problem between Netflix and the production company and kind of ending it in a way that seemed okay, but at the same time, I just want to know. I just want to know what's going to happen, basically. I also got to visit my best friend this week, and on the TV while we were there was a show called Hidden Killers of the Victorian Era, and it was basically all these things that could possibly have been killing people back then, such as the wallpaper that had arsenic in it, or the stoves that would just explode, or the gas lights, or things like that. So every once in a while we'd look up and that would be going on and be like, and we would make fun of it. Such as there were a few episodes post the Victorian era, so post-war era, and then I think there was another one, and it was just like lead paint in toys for kids and stuff like that. So even though our time frame isn't exactly a utopia, it made me feel very good that I was not having to deal with those problems. Of course, I also stayed current with RuPaul's Drag Race UK versus the world. In this episode we had the ball challenge, and it was a RuPaul ball. So each of the challenge categories had to do with RuPaul's songs or history. The first challenge was Kitty Girl, the second challenge amounted to a Butch Queen, and the third challenge was You Wear It Well. So the queens were trying to make something that RuPaul would actually wear. As always, this show continues to be delightful. I do not understand why Bag of Chips was able to go down the runway in a dress that he did not make, because Pangina Heels was definitely doing all the finishing touches on that dress, but here we are, it's fine, I can't change the outcome. And of course it's always entertaining to see my hometown queen do so well, especially with the banter with RuPaul. It's just very entertaining. I also stayed current on RuPaul's Drag Race season 14. This one was also a sewing challenge in which Michelle Visage has done too much online shopping while she was on some form of sedative, and it's just boxes upon boxes of random things, and the girls have to make some form of garment out of them. One of the things that kind of bothered me is the queens weren't given anything to help them open the boxes, so Willow Pill wasn't able to even open the boxes, which meant that she basically just had to go and scavenge around and try to find random things that other queens didn't want, which was a little bit upsetting. Like, if you're gonna give people boxes to open, maybe even give them your car keys or a pair of scissors, something. I was also very shocked that the win for this one didn't go to the person who basically came in second if you watched the edit, because I thought that she deserved it. This week we also watched the entire series of The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. This is an 8-part show. The episodes are about a half hour each, and the main character is played by Kristen Bell. I don't want to tell you too much about the setup because a lot of the setup is revealed to you in very hilarious and clever ways. However, basically she lives in this place and neighbors move in across the street, and then she thinks she might have seen a murder, but we're not entirely sure if she has. From there, she's trying to figure out whether or not it happened, and then try to figure out who did it. This is the type of show that's not afraid to turn up the cheese factor in certain areas, which I thought was hilarious. For example, the first bit of voiceover you hear in this is Kristen Bell with an English accent, and at first I was very thrown off. I was like, wow, I didn't assume she was going to be British in this. This is very, very strange. And then it's revealed a few lines later that she's just putting on a British accent because sometimes she just does that for fun, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna enjoy this show. Additionally, anytime there was a book featured in this show, it was very entertaining to look at what the titles were. Also, at one point there is a gravestone that comes into play, and every time you see it, it has a different epitaph, which is just weird. I love how the show really played with the unreliable narrator, and I didn't foresee who the killer was until it was revealed, which is always kind of fun. The other show I watched this week was a couple of episodes of Penny Dreadful. We finished the first season and watched the first episode in the second season. At the end of the first season, there's a big reveal as to one of the characters being something. Not necessarily from literature, because I don't know this character from literature, but I have sort of heard of this character in either songs or a movie that I don't think I ever saw, so maybe it's based on literature and I just haven't read it, because as we know, I don't read a lot of classics, and a lot of what this is based on is actually weirdly classics that I have read. I do enjoy that as one mystery plotline has kind of wrapped up, we are getting whole new characters and whole new situations to carry us into this second season, so I'm excited to see where it goes. The movie we watched this week was a rewatch, and that was The Cabin in the Woods. I have had an inkling to watch this since I recently re-looked at what the cast list is and realized that Jesse Williams is in it, who I know from Grey's Anatomy, but I'm pretty sure I watched this movie well before I started watching Grey's Anatomy and well before he became a recurring character on the show, so basically I wanted to rewatch it just to see him in something else. Not to mention this is a movie that is a lot of fun. It has the classic setup of being a horror movie, of all of these college kids going away for the weekend to this cabin in the woods. It's very remote and creepy things happen while we're there. However, we have this overarching narrative of these people that seem to be working in what feels like it's like a power plant. That's what this area feels like. They've got all these controls, and then you realize they've got all these cameras that are inside and outside of this cabinet in the woods. And you're wondering, how are these things related? I find the reveal reveals in this very clever, and then also just seeing such a star-studded cast. Bradley Whitford is in this, which is just always fun for me. And if you've never seen it before, I'm not going to wreck it for you, but just know that it takes the classic horror tropes and really spins them, and I very much enjoyed that. The first book that I listened to this week was for the 12 Challenge, and that was Rise to the Sun by Leah Johnson. This book has two perspectives. In the first one, we have two friends that are going away to this music festival because our main character in that perspective had something happen with an ex recently. We don't really know what it was, but because of it, she's really dreading going back to school, so she needs something super fun to do before the school year, to the point where her mother thinks she's gone to Bible camp, and she is definitely not. It's a music festival. In the other perspective, we have this girl that's been going to this festival for years. That's actually how she met her friend that is also at the festival with her, but she is on a mission with this year. Essentially, one of the many things that happens at this festival is a chance for an unknown act to get recognized and also play the end show with a bunch of amazing bands. She really wants to win this because 20 years previously her father actually got that chance, and then it changed his life and he went on tour with people as their roadie, and she just wants to see if that life is for her because otherwise she's off to university next week. Both of these characters have fairly traumatic reveals, so there are definitely some trigger warnings for this book. I always feel like if I'm going to list trigger warnings, I will inevitably end up missing some, so I have a couple of resources linked down in the description where you can find trigger warnings for different books, because I want people to have them if they need them. One of the characters became incredibly frustrating during the course of this novel, but I feel like she eventually got some character growth, so there was that. There were also some reveals I didn't see coming. Overall, I enjoyed this one. The other audiobook I listened to this week was just one I was interested in, and that was Cultish: The Language of Fanaticism. This is all about the language that is used in cults, both the type that you definitely feel like are cults, such as like Jonestown and those types of things, as well as just in-groups such as giant fitness corporations. I found all of this incredibly fascinating, and I feel like it's the type of book that I'm going to want to read again and again just to absorb more and more of the information. One of the biggest things I got out of this one is the terminology of thought-terminating cliches. So these are phrases that people will say which will just stop an argument altogether, and it's really hard to argue against. For example, if somebody questions something that's happening in a cult or in any situation whatsoever, and then the person just spews toxic positivity back at them, such as something as easy as being like, everything happens for a reason, or things like that. I've actually seen people end arguments with these types of cliches before, or something as simple as do your research, as though you haven't already done your research. This was also very weirdly timed for me because a friend of mine posted about joining this certain situation, and then I remembered that my friend Savvy had actually done a whole video about whether or not that situation was a cult, and I was able to forward that video and go, I don't know if they're okay now, but at one point they were pretty bad, so maybe look into it. This also very heavily goes into multi-level marketing, which I am definitely against, so it was interesting to see that aspect of it, and to understand why certain things have always felt kind of off to me, but I haven't been able to put them into words. Needless to say, I would highly recommend this book. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!